The light is nothing without the darkness. And just like in all things good, there cannot be the good without the evil, the yin without the yang, love without hate, freedom without oppression. And a world like ours can't last forever. We can't get much faster than this and still maintain our relative sanity, because the golden ratio applies to all things. One day we'll fall into the black hole as we approach the event horizon of conscious perception at an ever-increasing velocity. That's how it all works. You can't ignore the laws of this whole thing. We'll continue to swirl around this toilet bowl of a universe until we're sucked into the bottom. Even the materialists, as they rush blindly towards the perceptive black hole at breakneck speed, continue to pat themselves on the back and act as though they're above this whole thing. Their contradiction is apparent and obvious, as they say we're nothing more than material, but at the same time act as though we're something much greater than it. They disparage the very creation they claim to worship with their instruments, the sacramental tools of a dying religion. But I'm probably not making any sense, am I? After all, old white men in fancy suits tell me that I'm always spitting out mystical mumbo-jumbo, and that my talk is primitive and unscholarly, as they like to say. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm full of shit. They said the truth is somewhere in the middle. At least that's what Socrates and Hegel told us. In a sense, that is absolutely true. So I went looking for it, for the truth. I went to astronomy, biology, and chemistry departments and found grown men and women, surprisingly, playing with toys in their laboratories. They told me to look into one of the toys, and I would find the answer. I said, "What about the bigger picture?" They laughed at me. "The bigger picture?" they asked. "This is the bigger picture, in here." I shook my head in disappointment. They didn't have the answer. But how could they not have the answer? After all, they were dressed in white uniforms with the words Doctor, PhD scribbled across their chests. I grew up thinking they knew everything. Or was it that they knew nothing? I can't remember anymore. But then, I really thought I found the answer. I smoked a joint. I tripped out and suddenly got it all in one single, magnificent instant. It was the real thing, the truth. I thought it was going to last. I thought the pain and confusion, the constant striving in this dog-eat-dog world would end. I thought the trip would last forever. You probably did too. At least you hoped that it would. But it's not all that easy, is it? Or did you think it was that easy? Did you think that this Leviathan monstrosity would let you just drift away and escape alive, in peace and intact? You can't just get it and go on. It doesn't work that way. There is no red pill. That would be too easy. There is no white rabbit hopping along the trail for you to follow. Definitely not. Someone shot it a long time ago. Someone shot the white rabbit. Let me explain to you how it really works. This world is shit, shitty, and full of shit. No matter where you go, you'll step in it. It's only getting deeper. They've only tried to make it smell better. And it's not a matter of whether or not you step in the shit, because you will. You most definitely will. But what matters is if you can wipe it off and keep walking. Maybe the social Darwinists have one thing right, that the struggle makes the man or the woman. We're all in this struggle, and some people a long time ago said that eventually the meek would inherit the earth, right? As long as we survived. They've been saying that for thousands of years. I wish it would hurry up and get here. Because this matrix that we're in is so complicated, so far beyond rational contemplation and discussion, so interconnected and dependent on its constituent functionality, it can only be perceived through a glass darkly, through a riddle in a mirror. rather than explain with logical linguistic formulations. To try and explain the ineffable is not only foolish but unwise, to say the least. To rationalize the irrational is impossible and beyond the limitations of our human minds. Saying blah would better explain the noumenon than a shelf full of books on the subject. These are not beyond the mind of the eternal, the mind of what we have historically called God. But we are not eternal, we are not God. Not completely, anyway. We're crippled, handicapped by our finitude and dependent materiality. We are emotional ape gods, complete with very limited, albeit vastly underestimated, neural processing units. Ape hierarchies have long been used to take advantage of the apparent relativity that lies within our ape god complexes. They used to say the ruler of a community was a god. Then, when pressure mounted against this diluted concept, they said the ruler was God's representative. When that ceased to work, then they said that his rule was simply ordained by God, and was to be followed at all times. Now, as the ape hierarchy approaches global acceptance, it has abandoned all eternal justification, and they simply tell us they rule us now for our own good. They've pulled the whole thing off with barely a hitch, if you hadn't noticed by now. And they'll keep up with the clever excuse making until the Leviathan bites the hook once and for all. Each of us, no matter how flawed or hopeless or broken or whatever, we are each a finite manifestation of the infinite, and we're here to stay. We are indigent, and we're completely at home here where we've sprang up from the ground just like everything else. If you can't just smoke a joint and get it, then you can't just hope things will change for the better either. That's not how it works. If you're still alive, you should have figured out by now that it's not that easy. This monstrous, complex wheel doesn't stop for anything except God, except the eternal, or perhaps except for the eternal nature of the emotional ape god, complete with self-awareness, meditation, and the capacity to exhibit resistance against unnatural schemes. Will you be able to succeed? Will I? Eventually, one day. Indigen will win because Indigen is what I am. Indigen is what you are. It's what all of this is. You and I are the emotional ape gods, in control of our destinies, free of the imaginary and symbolic, monstrous, mechanistic matrix we've been trapped within. Even in the midst of all our finitude and sometimes haywired programming. You must realize it, manifest it, and meditate on it. You are what you are, and so much more. You are the emotional ape god. You are indigent.